protests downtown. We are waiting for Mayor Bill Peduto, Public Safety Director Wendell Hersick, and Police Chief Scott Schubert to speak to us. Let's listen in.
Public Safety Director would like to make, and also a statement that the Chief of Police would like to make about getting some information out to the public.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. We are aware that a lot of the community, business owners, and others want to help apprehend those that did damage to the city of Pittsburgh, and basically we need their assistance. So we've established a phone number of 412-323-7800. Once again, that's 412-323-7800. And we ask anyone, whether it be within the city of Pittsburgh, within Allegheny County, or Western Pennsylvania, that has video that they feel might be useful, or any other evidence that might help us in our investigations of trying to apprehend the numerous individuals that created havoc on Saturday and actually into Sunday. The investigation, and I'll let the chief expand on it, the investigation as to what happened as far as the individuals, we started it already. We've named one suspect, of which we are currently looking for along with the FBI, but we expect numerous other subjects to be identified and more arrests to occur. And the investigation probably will not happen overnight, but it will take months and potentially up to years to determine who the suspects are and to bring them to justice. The other issue that I want to make everyone aware of, and I'm sure you're aware of it, is we've extended the curfew one more night from 8:30 this evening until 6 a.m. tomorrow. And we do have some concerns, not specific to Pittsburgh, but what's going on throughout the nation, that we just want to be cautious and have the tools in the toolbox for law enforcement to be able to disperse a crowd that may be concerning after 8:30 this evening. So I will turn it over to Chief Schubert, then we will answer as many questions as we can. Chief Schubert.
Good afternoon. Just to follow up on what the director was saying, I've made it our mandate for the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police that we want to look at every incident that occurred, whether it starts from attacking our mounted unit with stop sign and sticks and throwing rocks, throwing bottles, whatnot, to damaging the car, which we're able to identify the person, and we have a warrant for him, to the person who started the fire in the car, to the person who started a fire in another car, to anyone who threw rocks at our officers, to anyone who assaulted members of the media, those who broke into the buildings downtown and started the looting. There's a lot of video that's out there. There's a lot of pictures that are out there. Some of you have things on your cameras that you saw. So we're going to be collecting everything we can get our hands on, to include social media items. And we'll have detectives that are assigned to our internal sort of like a task force to get the videos, get the pictures, get every incident, and start trying to identify the people who committed these acts of violence, these acts of vandalism. These are criminal crimes, and we want to find out who did it. This isn't something we expect in the city of Pittsburgh. We've had so many protests over the years, so many, and to see what happened on Saturday was just it was heartbreaking as a Pittsburgher to see that occur, and to see the level that a lot of a segment of that group had to do this violence, to do this destruction in our city. So I can guarantee we're going to do everything we can to find out who they are and bring them to justice. We owe that to the city of Pittsburgh, and everybody that was downtown or has property downtown. And we'll keep you updated as we get that. And I can tell you, and I said it the first day, we'll keep plastering those photos out there till we identify people. And then I'll open it up to questions.
Scott, I had a question for you, or the mayor, either one of you. The FOP union president has been critical of the response by the city on Saturday, saying that basically the city was not prepared and it put officers' lives in danger and put businesses out in the open. I mean, how do you respond to some of his criticism saying the city wasn't prepared? Were you prepared or were you not prepared?
Well, first of all, I would say the FOP president should probably come to the Pittsburgh police where they also work if there are issues and not take it to the media first. So I'll say that up front. Second, we look at every protest that we get that comes in, which I think the information for us came on Friday. We have people who look at the protest. We look at the intelligence of the protest. We talk to the organizers. There's a lot of things we factor into that in deciding how many people were there. Was I surprised by, at the end, what happened? Was I surprised at the number of protesters who were, whether they're anarchists, whether they're Antifa, whether they're any other? Those people in those groups have one thing in mind, and that's not to support what the actual protest is for, the message that's there. They're there to cause violence. They're there to cause injury and property damage. That's what they do. And you've seen it. You've seen it across the country. And a lot of cities hit at the same time with their protests. So do I wish we had more at the time? Yeah, absolutely, I do. But we go with what we have and putting the officers out there. And, you know, we learned from that. You know, we had 4 officers that were injured. I believe the ones who were injured had helmets on, thankfully, so it wasn't worse. You know, you look at the mounted unit; those officers were up on top of the horses, getting assaulted from people. You know, people criticize the mounted unit, saying they marched into the crowd to stop the protest. They didn't march into the crowd to stop that protest. They had to get the hell out of there. They were getting attacked. And that's why they had to go through the crowd. So I just wanted to dispel that rumor and false information that's going out there. But you know, hopefully that answers your question.
I need to add on to that. And I know you didn't address it to me, Rick, but I mean, when I arrived here and Bob became president, I mean, I established at his request a monthly meeting for himself and the leadership to come to my office and express any issues that they had. Out of that, he showed up for the first meeting, and I've yet to see him at any follow-up meetings. We've tried to reach out to him after he fails to show up at the meeting, and there's no contact. I mean, it's very easy for Bob to play Monday morning quarterback, but he has had ample opportunity to bring these issues to my office, and any issues that any of the public safety bureaus have brought to my address to me, I have found, with the help of the mayor and council, money for the safety of whether it be the firefighters, the paramedics, or the police. I just want to know that at 12 o'clock on Saturday, an order went out to EMS and to firefighters to have their ballistic vests and their ballistic helmets at the ready for what could have potentially, knowing what was going on throughout the country, have it ready, and it did pay off because they had them in their vehicles, and you know, the fire engine that was responding to the car fire, the police vehicles that were on fire, they began being pelted. They had their vests on, and they were told and instructed by us to retreat because it just wasn't worth their safety. So, go ahead.
Hi, sure. So, as you prepare for a protest, how do you determine when or if officers will wear riot gear, if there will be a mounted unit, knowing that some people perceive that as threatening, as scary?
No, I get that, and I understand what you're saying. We look at everything to, is it going to be an assembly? Is it going to be a march? Is there the potential that an assembly may turn into a march? Because a lot of times we're not given full information on what they're going to do. we go out of our way to ensure that whoever is protesting is safe, and other pedestrians, other motorists, and the officers are safe. So we have to have resources available if they start to march, to have them there. The mounted unit is a good resource because they're up high. They can see things that the officers standing around or on the motorcycles can't see. So there's a lot of different factors of what we use and how many people we use to do that. But we recognize, and across the nation, law enforcement recognizes that you don't just come right out with the helmets and the batons and shields and things like that. When it switches to not a peaceful assembly, but when it switches to harming people and vandalizing, destroying property, looting, things like that, we've got a job to do, and we need to make sure that we're safe doing that. Are there times when things happen and you don't have your gear? What do you see our officers do? They still do their job because that's what they're trained to do. That's what they want to do as being police officers. And there's times where we have to get to ensure that they stay safe, maybe doing a tactical withdrawal so they can get out of the harm's way with that. I mean, I hear rumors, and I almost have to laugh about saying we stage cars for them to torch. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, we're gonna put cars so you can torch them and cause more issues? Absolutely not. But we look at everything. I mean, we don't just, hey, let's think off the top of our head, you know, we'll do this. You know, we put thought into what we're doing and the manpower we're going to need to do it. And we were in contact with the state police and the county police before this in the event that we needed them. And when we needed them, they came in.
You also were pretty adamant on Saturday that the organizers themselves of the original protest were peaceful and remained peaceful. You implied that it was sort of outside agitators. When you say outside, is it specifically referring to those groups geographically from outside this area, knowing that most of the people that were arrested were local on Saturday night? Or what did you mean when you said outside groups? Who are they? Where do they come from? What can you say about what you know about those groups that were in Pittsburgh, geographically and ideologically?
So these are outside influences that are coming into a group of people, and we had you know, information from the organizers of what they wanted to do, and everything they wanted to do was to have a peaceful protest, and you know, to put out what happened to Mr. Floyd in Minneapolis. And these were occurring across the country because I think all of us in law enforcement, all of us in the community, and to be honest with you, when I'm thinking back, this is probably one of the one times where everybody's on the same page that person shouldn't have died. He should not have died in custody like that. So it bothered a lot of us for doing that. So they knew what they wanted to do, meaning the organizers. It's the outside influence. And I said before, that group that comes in, call them what you want, but they're there for one reason, and that's to cause harm, that's to cause devastation, that's to cause destruction of property. That's what they do. It's not about the message. It's about them. And it's about them hijacking what the original organizers are for. When you look at outsiders, I mean, we've been doing this for a long time. We know how many come. We know who they are. It doesn't take much to see who they are. It doesn't take much to see that they change their clothes when they're doing stuff. You know, you're not carrying an umbrella in your backpack on a sunny day because it's going to rain. You're carrying it for a reason to block, you know, pepper spray or something else that might be coming your way. You know, it's not people in Pittsburgh. It's not just people in Pittsburgh. It's people from the surrounding areas, and it's people from out of state. Now, I know you guys are going off of a number of the ones we arrest and says, well, hey, they're all from the local area. I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to arrest more because I sure as heck would have liked to have. But we got to do things safely for our officers.
Scott, do you have any more intel on whether these guys are affiliated with an anarchist group or Antifa? I know there was some talk about that on Saturday, but any... That's
what the investigation is going to lead out to. Like I said, they're different segments. I mean, you saw some of the graffiti. There was the tags that were put in different places. So that's what our investigators will look at.
So no indication that this
not right now. I can't get. Yeah.
Is related to
Some of their clothing is concerning. You know, the way they dress, the way they act, the way they dress, the way they act. They either are associated or they want to be associated. So that's what the investigation is going to determine.
Can you talk about the role of federal authorities in all of that, and how the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office plays a role in all of this?
Yeah, since the beginning of the incident, between our real-time crime center, our intel unit, and myself and the chief, we've basically had, if not once a day, several times a day, communicating with the FBI, in some cases the Homeland Security, and we had intel that there was potential that it was going to spread from Minnesota outward. We saw what was happening, so we did prepare, as well as many other cities. There's been and I won't go into the specifics, but there's been numerous intel-driven reports provided, whether it be, as we talked about, the different groups, what they do, some of the weapons they use, whether it be incendiary or other type of weapons. So they've been very instrumental in preparing for this. And once it did occur, I mean, the day that it happened, anytime that we have any significant events, we usually have an FBI agent embedded with us or an analyst embedded with us, whether it be at the Real-Time Crime Center, whether it be the Emergency Operations Center. And then after it happened, we reached out to them. We asked them to provide perimeter support to their federal buildings within the city in cooperation with the U.S. Marshals Service and the Federal Protective Service. And then they provided us over a dozen agents to work with us on this investigation to determine whether or not there is any interstate nexus. And as I mentioned at the last press conference, the Attorney General of the United States came out and said that they are fully supportive. We talked with U.S. Attorney here in Pittsburgh, Scott Brady, and his associates several times, and they are fully on board with assisting us, number one, if it turns out to be local investigation, and number two, if we can make it a federal investigation, we will do that because of the penalties being so severe.
Is there an estimate of how many more, you have the warrant out for this one 20-year-old, is there an estimate of how many agitators like that there were, and can you talk about, I know we all have the criminal complaint, what specifically helped you make this case and draw up that complaint so quickly?
This one, based on, I mean, there's just so much video out there, so many, and that's the good thing. I mean, we're talking about all the negative stuff, when we need to talk about the good stuff. The protesters who were so much against what this group did, trying to help a member of the media, trying to stop a car from getting burned, trying to end the protest when it started getting ugly. There's a lot of good acts out there that I think we need to start identifying as well. But we're going to go through everything. I can't give you a number, but I can tell you from this one compared to doing protests, and I've been involved with protests my whole career, but going back into the early 2000s after the war started after 9/11, there was more on Saturday in that particular type of group than I've ever seen in the city of Pittsburgh. They were very well trained, they were very committed to what they were doing, and they were organized, and we've learned some additional things based on what we saw from on Saturday as well. But I can tell you, we're going to keep going until we find the ones that we can.
Scott, how many? Do you guys have a number on how many?
And you've been listening to Pittsburgh city leaders give an update on the protests from over the weekend following the George Floyd death in Minneapolis while in police custody. That was 1 week ago. Over the weekend, of course, there were protests that began peacefully here in Pittsburgh and erupted into violence when police say anarchists hijacked the movement and caused destruction throughout downtown Pittsburgh. We're going to have a full coverage update for you on the protests going on in our area and what was said during the during the news conference, where they are asking for the public's help to give them video and pictures to help in their investigation. You'll see the latest tonight on Channel 11 News at 5 o'clock. We'll see you then.
This has been a special report from Channel 11 News.
Around the block or an evening.